We're talking PFF grades today on Locked On 49ers. Is Brock Purdy elite? What about the Niners' top two defenders? Is this the best tandem in the NFL? A phenomenal rookie class and a whole bunch more coming at you right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love our everydayers out there. And welcome to all the new listeners here. Daily San Francisco 49ers coverage. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you listen to podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. All right, Croc, we're going to have Dalton Wasserman of Pro Football Focus on a little later. It's actually not going to be we. It's going to be me and Dalton talking. I want to make sure I get all of the right questions out there. So let me know if there's any specifics you want to know from the PFF grading about this San Francisco 49ers through 6 weeks of the season. But before we get to that stuff, Croc, a couple of interesting notes. One, just saw 49ers offensive lineman John Feliciano says he's ready. He used SpongeBob SquarePants to announce that he's ready. I assume that means he's ready to be healthy and come back to the San Francisco 49ers. So I ask you, Croc, when Feliciano is ready, is he a super sub, left guard, center, right guard, or do you think he maybe jumps in ahead of somebody in the starting lineup for the 49ers?
What's the health like at the left guard position? Because I saw Spencer Burford have to go in. Obviously, you would like to have Aaron Banks in there. Where is he? So I think that's the first thing we have to address. How healthy are the guards? And if he's not at one of the guard spots because they're healthy, they're ready to go. And by they, I mean Aaron Banks. Then maybe center with Brendel. But I think Dominick Puni has played definitely well enough to where I don't think we have to worry about him being replaced at all by Feliciano.
Yeah, Puni's entrenched, man. Puni's the dude at right guard, not touching him. So it'd be center or left guard. Banks, I mean, Banks is a really good player, I think, but and this happened last year as well, when he's playing and not healthy, he's clearly not as good. And I don't know if it's the nature of whatever he's dealing with. If Burford's the left guard, then that leaves only center for Feliciano. I think there's potential for Feliciano to be better than Jake Brendel. I don't think Feliciano's going to jump into the starting lineup, but the 49ers clearly have options. And with Burford playing a little tackle as well, and he can play both guard spots, then you have Feliciano who can play center in both guard spots. I think you start to now have like a pretty deep group of offensive linemen and know that you're a couple deep at every position. Obviously, Moore has been the backup at left tackle for Trent Williams there. So I think a lot of people will immediately say he should jump into the starting lineup, probably first Jake Brendel at center. And I don't think I would fight people on that. I think it's close between those two. And maybe Feliciano's better, but straight off of injury, I don't think we should expect any changes. And I'd be probably pretty surprised if the 49ers make any changes right away. But it could be a situation where injury opens up a spot and then Feliciano starts playing at center. And then all of a sudden, he's staying there at center. That could be something that happens. And we just saw that with Puni at right guard.
And that was one of the big intrigues with John Feliciano coming over, where he was a little bit flexible in the interior there of the offensive line. So, whether he's at guard or whether he's at center, you're hoping that you can potentially get a boost like you got from him down the stretch last season.
I got to talk to you about this because we saw what happened with DJ Reed, former San Francisco 49er, a different situation than with Samuel Womack.
Hold on, can we revisit what happened with DJ Reed so we can kind of set the table? Yes. DJ Reed was a cornerback at Kansas State, and he had always played cornerback, and the 49ers said, okay, well, you're not tall, you're this 5'9" guy, so instead of having you as an outside cornerback, we're going to have you come in and play safety and also cross-train you to play nickel. Well, ultimately, he played nickel, he played safety, he got hurt in the process. The 49ers tried to waive him with kind of this injury designation type thing and bring him back. And the Seahawks said, we're going to stab him off. He actually came back. I feel like he recovered much faster than anyone anticipated, probably including himself.
Yeah, it was one of those where if he's ended up on the 49ers, that meant he was going to be done for the year, and they were kind of like stashing him a little bit, kind of doing him dirty, I think, in some ways, because it wasn't something that was going to keep him out the rest of the year. We've seen that happen before. We saw it with Richie James. I think the 49ers did that with – I think the 49ers might have done that with – did they do that with Juwan Jennings? Because I know Juwan Jennings was waived at one point, and then he came back. Kind of like Colton McKivitz, but I don't remember if that was injury related or not, if that was like a stash job. But anyway, yeah, DJ Reed's the one that comes to mind the most, because now there's a certain nickname that Sam Womack is garnering with the Indianapolis Colts after the 49ers let him go. The Colts swooped him up. He's starting for the Colts, and he's earning the nickname, Croc, Shut Down Sam, with the Indianapolis Colts, which 49ers fans are like, well, wait a second. You got Shut Down Sam. This dude started the first game of his rookie season, week 1, rookie year. That doesn't happen a lot, Croc.
Well, he started rookie year as a nickel. And why was he replaced? The conversations, the messages that I got, and I got some from someone who may know a little bit something about playing the cornerback position of future Hall of Famer. He said, yeah, I think he's getting benched because of his run fits. He's not great with his run fits. Well, he's an outside cornerback. So we referenced DJ Reed, a guy that played safety and nickel for the 49ers, didn't have an opportunity to play outside cornerback. DJ goes to the Seahawks, plays cornerback on the outside. They didn't have him at nickel. They didn't have him at safety. They say, we don't carry your 5'9". You can cover. They utilized that. That got him a huge payday with the New York Jets, and he's a part of one of the best tandems at the cornerback position in the NFL. Well, now we're looking at Samuel Womack, a guy who the 49ers drafted, and said, oh, well, even though Eric Crocker and Brian Peacock are saying you look taller than your 5'9" frame, probably because of your long arms, and we're identifying him as someone who potentially could play on the outside or can play on the outside, we're identifying him as someone who led his conference at Toledo in pass breakups and pass defense. This is a guy that had 4.3 speed, had that long speed. They're like, we're going to play you at the nickel position. And he made some plays early on. If you go back to his rookie year preseason game against the Green Bay Packers, multiple interceptions playing in the nickel, but it was almost like he never got real comfortable playing there. So 49ers like, he's not going to beat out some of the other guys. Diamador Lenore, he's a terrific nickel. We have some other guys that have some positional flexibility. We're going to have this guy, Renardo Green. We're going to cross-train him to play nickel. So you know what, Samuel Womack, your services here are no longer needed. Where it goes to the Colts, and like I said, they're giving him a nickname. And where is he lined up? Is he lined up at the nickel, or is he lined up on the outside?
He's lined up outside, Croc.
It's almost disappointing, because how do you not give him a legit opportunity there? Now, maybe they'll tell you, well, Croc, we did. But are you really, when you keep drafting these guys and then the first thing you're doing, they did it with Green. It's like, why are you guys drafting Renardo Green? Like, well, yeah, we're going to start him off in the nickel, then we'll see. Like, what? He's an outside cornerback.
Yeah, what's this thing where they have to move guys? Tarvarius Moore, remember? He was an outside corner. They're like, nah, he's going to be a safety for us. And turned out,
no, he was a safety, and they drafted him to play corner.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
He had never played safety, and he was a safety in junior college, and he went to university. I think it was Missouri or something like that, playing safety. And they're like, oh, well, we're going to put you at corner. And he's like, well, and I'm watching this film. We're actually watching his film together, and I'm like, he kind of moves like a safety. He looks like a safety. Doesn't quite give me cornerback vibes, but all right, and it never worked.
My big thing with Sam Womack is, how the heck was he not getting big opportunities ahead of, or at least as many opportunities as Ambry Thomas? That would be my big question, because there would have been an opportunity for him to have already been doing what he's doing with the Indianapolis Colts right now with the 49ers like 2 years ago.
I wonder if you talk to a 49ers position coach, the DB coach, and you're like, hey, how come Samuel Womack didn't play over Ambry Thomas? He's like, man, that call came from above my head. That's above my pay grade. It was something that I didn't agree with, but that was what they wanted to do. I wonder if that's how the conversation would go if I were able to talk to a position coach. Yeah, or if you say, you know what, he just didn't get it, and maybe going elsewhere kind of lit a fire under him, and he got his confidence back, his swagger back, and it's just a better fit with what they were doing defensively.
Yeah,
that could be the same for DJ Reed as well, where it just schematically maybe isn't a great fit.
Yeah, you're not going to, there's something you're not quite doing well, whether it's outside or inside, that is not going to jive for us. And I think it's a lot similar to what we talk about with Kyle Shanahan, some of the young rookie wide receivers. And it's like, if there's something, there's might be a limiting factor where if you're not doing this thing, you might be good at A and C, but if you can't do B for us, you can't play for us. And that might be part of it.
We've looked at, I watched T. Higgins last night, and we're seeing him balling. He's catching passes in traffic and strong hands, and he's doing this thing. And you just know, like, but Kyle might not like T. Higgins.
I was like, nope, don't like that. All right, we got to bring on Dalton Wasserman. He is an analyst for Pro Football Focus. Croc, before I get into my conversation with Dalton, is there anything specific you want me to ask him about this San Francisco 49ers team through 6 weeks?
Hopefully he can talk to us about the analytics versus film. And I say versus film because there's like one group of film watchers who love Purdy, and it seems to be the former NFL quarterbacks. There's another group of film guys who are like, and that's kind of the social media kind of guys, film watchers
versus the ex-quarterback film watchers. Yeah.
Right. I don't know what side of that I'm going to be on. And then I was joking, if you guys can tell. And then the analytics, what do they say about what Brock Purdy is doing? Because so far, everything I've seen has been, this guy is like an all-time great early in his career. Is that what he's seeing as well? So I think that's the biggest thing. There's the Nick Bosa, and I would love to, is he getting doubled? Is he, what's his pressure rate compared to other guys? Sometimes I watch guys like TJ Watt, Max Crosby, and I'm like, they're just better than Nick Bosa, but maybe my eyes are deceiving me. Maybe that's not the case, and there's a reason as to why some of these guys are potentially great now higher. So I would like to get some of those answers to those questions.
What does the PFF data tell us about Brock Purdy's eliteness? Bosa, Warner, and the 49ers rookie class, and more coming up next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. NFL fans can get started with a big return right now on FanDuel, because when you sign up at FanDuel, place your first $5 bet, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed. You don't even have to win on that first $5 bet. That's $200 extra in bonus bets to play with at FanDuel. Bet on the 49ers to win the Super Bowl. How about Brock Purdy? We'll talk about his PFF grades in a second and why he's in that MVP conversation. Doesn't have to split votes with Christian McCaffrey this year either. And when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you're watching the Niners Chiefs next Sunday, and you want to check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, you can find it all on the very same page where you're placing your bets at FanDuel.com. So download the app or go to FanDuel.com and get America's #1 sportsbook. That is FanDuel.com. The next segment of Locked On 49ers brought to you by PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. And PrizePicks invented Flex Play, which means you can still cash out. Even if your lineup isn't perfect, you can still double your money, even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And join 10 million users and sign up today at PrizePicks, the best place to get real money sports action. All you do is, by the way, you're not playing against those 10 million other users. It's just you against those stat projections at PrizePicks. You pick 2 or more player stat projections, and if you hit on those, you can watch that money roll in and get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. For example, let's say Justin Jefferson for more than 83.5 receiving yards, or Patrick Mahomes less than against those 49ers, 267.5 passing yards. Those are the more thans and less thans that you can find on PrizePicks. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's PrizePicks. Run your game. All right, joining me now is PFF's own Dalton Wasserman, analyst at Pro Football Focus. You can find him on Twitter at PFF_Dalton. And we're talking a little bit off the air about how fun it is and all the different things you can do at PFF and the army of people that it takes to get these grades for us and break down all of these players. And so I'm really glad to get somebody on from PFF And Dalton, appreciate you giving us your time because I know it's super busy during the season to help us break down some of these 49ers players. And you can help us answer the question, is Brock Purdy elite possibly on today's show?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, that's always a fun question. It feels like he's one of the most hotly debated guys, right? And I know everybody behind the scenes. Is he really good? Is he just good for a 7th-round pick? Does he not have enough tools? Can he win a Super Bowl? It's always fun to answer that. But I'll tell you what, he's playing really, really well, isn't he?
Absolutely, no doubt. He's so fun to watch. He's a really interesting player. And right now what we have is the film watchers versus ex-players is what I want to call it. And my co-host, Eric Crocker, was on with me earlier in the podcast, and he had some other stuff this afternoon. So it's just me and you here to finish up this episode. But he wanted to make sure I asked you who was right, because the media film watchers versus the ex-quarterback, like ex-quarterbacks love Brock Purdy. They love him. And they get so mad at everybody who doesn't want to give him credit, maybe because they see a little bit of themselves in him, because, the JT O'Sullivans of the world and and even Kurt Warner, who went to, the most glorious heights in the NFL, started off, in another league and had to make his own way. And so they probably, feel a little bit of kinship with the last pick in the NFL draft, who's making good right now. And, who is it? All the ex quarterbacks seem to love Brock Purdy. And some of the media types, they don't want to get in board. So break the tie for me, Dalton. Does PFF love Brock Purdy, and how is he grading out so far this year?
Look, from what we've seen the last year and a half, I got to side with the ex-quarterbacks. Right now, he's actually our highest graded quarterback in football, and it's hard to quantify. But when you watch him, why those guys love him is the football instinct. I want to put it. It's just off the charts. I mean, whether it's in structure, out of structure, knowing when to get rid of the football, knowing when to improvise. I think it's one of those things. He's actually, we talk about the guys who are athletic freaks improvising, right? We talk about Josh Allen under pressure and escaping the pocket, or Lamar Jackson taking off running or stiff arming people or doing whatever. Brock Purdy doesn't have the tools of those guys, yet it's the same high-level football IQ that he always showed at Iowa State, right? And I know because of the tools, he was drafted lower maybe than he should have been, but he just has a certain awareness that 95% of other guys don't have, right? And then people want to go, well, what about the ceiling? He's not that physically gifted. There's limitations. And then I go, well, he's second in the league right now with 10 big-time throws behind Kyler Murray. I mean, so he's making big throws. He makes tight window throws. He can improvise. Every week it feels like he shows us he can do what all the other guys can do. And yet there's some people who choose not to believe it, right? And again, it's a thing. You can't always watch highlights, right, of Brock Purdy and go, oh yeah, that's the best quarterback in the league, right? Like some guys you can just watch freakish highlights, right? And then there's some guys like him that you go, you have to watch every single snap of every single week. And the more you watch him, like I feel like I watch stretches of games where I go, God, did he just not do anything wrong today? It feels like that, right? I know Minnesota gave him problems because Brian Flores' defense has given everyone problems, but I feel like I watch stretches of games, and especially in this last game against Seattle, where I'm like, I feel like he just does no wrong.
It's interesting, too, because there's times where you think, oh, man, he looks like he's out of control. What's he doing? He's scrambling around. But he makes it a good play every time, too, which is what I find phenomenal. And I think if I was to ding Brock Purdy on anything, it's that he can't be as late as other quarterbacks. He's got to be in timing and rhythm. We saw it this week with the Deebo Samuel throw. If he had maybe a bigger arm, he could really zip that thing across the field, and Deebo's wide open. The safety's pretty far away. It's not like a bad decision to make the throw. It turned out to be a touchdown, turned out to be a great play, and he gave his guy an opportunity to make that play, but it was probably a little bit too close for a lot of people. And that's where the film watchers come in, and Ben Solak, former friend of this program and friend of the network. And, he's kind of in a fight right now just because of a tweet he dropped about Brock Purdy. He's like, oh, yeah, that could go the wrong way, right? And it's like, yeah, it could. And if he had a power arm, he probably gets it there a lot easier. But he still got it in the right place, and his guy made a play. And so there's a lot of plays like that where you're like, oh, is he in trouble? He's like, oh, no, he's not in trouble. And he really only gets in trouble if he's out of rhythm and out of timing, and he's very rarely like that. And then when he is and the play breaks down, he can make plays with his legs, and he doesn't give up, and he's got guts, and he's a playmaker at heart, which makes him really fun to watch. And I think you're right. I think it's harder to appreciate him unless you see him over and over. And I find myself having more and more fun watching him every single week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, he's got our second highest passing grade under pressure, like you just mentioned. I just think there's such this sense of calm. And you mentioned, oh, well, he can't be late. Well, honestly, mentally, especially, he never is. He's one of those quarterbacks. It feels like he's a step ahead. Joe Burrow does a little bit of that too, right? Where it feels like they're a step ahead. Like they have CJ Stroud's like this too, where it feels like there's always a plan. There's just some sort of like, man, how did he think of that? Or how did he throw the ball with that sort of timing? Or how did he see that guy, right? It's things that maybe, one day maybe we'll have a number for it, but there's certain plays where you go, okay, yeah, it's highly graded, but also the context of it being he just very rarely causes a bad situation, right? And it's just avoiding negatives is actually a far more stable indicator of great quarterback play than creating all those positives, right? Because there are guys who can do both, but avoiding negatives and keeping your team in good situations. I mean, Brock Purdy, I got to be honest, right now, he's one of the masters of it. And look, having a huge arm, having a Josh Allen, Justin Herbert type of arm, it's not mandatory. It's great to have. It absolutely is great to have an 80-yard bomb in your back pocket, but that's not what consistently wins football games. What wins football games is consistently moving the chains, being accurate, being smart with the football, not turning it over. All of the things that we would watch Tom Brady or even Patrick Mahomes do right in crunch time, those are the things that Brock Purdy does. So are there times, when the Niners fall behind and you worry a little bit about them dropping back and throwing the football every play? Sure, but I have concerns with that with almost every team in the league. Right? There's only 4 or 5 teams that I am comfortable for that with. To me, he's pretty clearly right now probably one of the top, the 8 best quarterbacks in the league, probably somewhere in there. They just have to finish a run and maybe avoid the Chiefs one of these years.
Chiefs coming up this week, which will be a whole lot of fun, and see if the 49ers can get the monkey off their back there. They haven't beat the Chiefs since Alex Smith, another former 49ers quarterback, was their quarterback about 10 years ago. When it comes to the 49ers offense, and I want to talk about some guys on the defense and maybe some rookies as well, there's still one guy who's just a little bit ahead of Brock Purdy as far as PFF grades go. And I'm talking about Trent Williams, of course, and destined to be a Hall of Famer. And he's not quite breaking the grading scale at PFF like he did a couple of years ago, but it's phenomenal how well he's still playing, even if he's not even playing at his best. Talk to me about Trent Williams and where he's at right now in his career and what you've seen from him from a PFF lens.
I mean, to put it simply, it's like he's not human. I mean, to be at his age and to walk in 3 or 4 days before the season, and still right now he's the second best tackle in football behind Teron Armstead for us. I mean, who's also a Pro Bowl caliber player in his own right. It's ridiculous. I mean, I just don't know. I almost don't know at 36 years old how he continues to do it, how he's just still a mauling run blocker, still a really, really good pass protector, right? And over the last 4 years, he's been in the top 2. He was number 1 3 years in a row, and he was number 2 behind Penei Sewell last year among all tackles. And this year he's number 2 again. I don't know when he's finally going to get old. I'm starting to think he might just be the Tom Brady of tackles. I mean, honestly, he is. It is a privilege to watch him, especially from our angle when we see him just grading out in the mid 80s every week, which is spectacular, and having just another great season every single year. You could argue even more than all the skill players that he's the most important player on their offense. I mean, what he does at the level he does it at his age, it's just unmatched. I've never seen another tackle at 36 years old. And I've seen some older than that. I think about Andrew Whitworth, who were really good pass protectors, but maybe fell off in the run game. What he does in the run and pass games, I mean, he's one of the all-time greats. There's just no other way to put it. And he continues to do it year in and year out.
Knowing a little bit about the PFF grading system and, the plus and minus system, does Trent Williams break the system because he makes few mistakes, but he also makes those plus plays where he's just gaining on everybody else who's getting graded?
That's what it is. That's how you get graded up in the 90s. Is your number of positive plays so far outweighs your negatives. You're exactly right. And then we have the different level of on the scale we have that -2 to +2 scale. He makes as many of those big time blocks. When we talk about big time blocks, we're talking about +1 or above, right? Like think about the biggest blocks you can have. And he's consistently near the top of the league in those as well. I mean, sometimes he's like a heat-seeking missile coming at these linebackers. It's not fair. So you talk about in the run game, not only does he make good blocks, positive blocks, he makes great blocks. You talk about sealing on the backside. You talk about just mashing linebackers down when they ask him for a down block. still can pull out in space and even get out on screens and move. He's still a great athlete. Like, you're talking about a guy who not only do the positives outweigh the negatives, they far outweigh it because of just such the high quality of blocks he can still make. And then as a pass protector, still just lights out. I mean, he's given up 12 pressures this year, only 1 sack, which feels like more than usual. But even then, you look at, he's got an almost identical pass blocking grade to last year at 84.2. Still really, really good. Even if this season ended today, that's like a top 10 mark, especially among all tackles. So it's just the positives so far outweigh the negatives. And it's amazing he still does it at 36 years old.
A new player stepped in on the 49ers offensive line, rookie Dominick Puni. Then I want to get into a few other rookies as well on the San Francisco 49ers team. It looks like a phenomenal 2024 draft class, and a couple of stars on the defensive side of the ball, where they rank in the NFL next with PFF's Dalton Wasserman. The final segment of today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is not only the place to buy last-minute tickets and get phenomenal deals on seats to maybe your next 49ers game, NFL game, college football game, any sporting event near you, but also the best concert tickets and comedy shows, theater events, all of it you can find at Gametime and get up to 60% off those last-minute tickets. But how about the new feature at Gametime called Gametime Picks? It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Gametime Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And that curation makes it easier to save more on sports, comedy, and theater events near you with Gametime Picks. You get the panoramic views from your seat, like always, at Gametime, and the lowest price Gametime guarantee. Gametime will credit you 100%, 110% of the difference, and your purchase is covered at Gametime with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So go to Gametime right now, download the app, and create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right, we're here with Dalton Wasserman of Pro Football Focus, breaking down some of the 49ers players. So far, we've confirmed what we already knew about Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer, Trent Williams. Brock Purdy, elite. If I'm not mistaken, you said he's better than Patrick Mahomes, right, Dalton?
maybe for the moment, but we won't be so definitive on it. At least for these first 6 weeks right now, he's the best quarterback in football. So
there you go. There you have it. And so let's go to the rookie class first, because I want to I want to finish up on the offensive side of the ball and looking at PFF grades. And look, I love the feature that PFF has, and when I'm breaking down teams and previewing games and stuff, I like to do the preview function that you have on PFF, where it shows the offense versus the defense, and you can kind of see the grades. You're like, well, this guy's green and this guy's red across from him. That might not be a great matchup. Let's dive into that one a little bit more. And the 49ers are lit up like a Christmas tree. They have better grades individually on their football team than what their 3-3 record tells you they are. And so a number of players that have very high grades. And on the offensive side of the ball, a top 5 grade on the team is rookie guard Dominick Puni. So when it comes to Dominick Puni, what do the grades say about what he's done so far as a rookie, stepping in at right guard and not giving the job back to an injured Spencer Burford in training camp? And then I want to get your thoughts on the 49ers second and fourth round defensive backs as well, that really had breakout games last week, and Renardo Green getting his first action with starters reps, and then Malik Mustafa, who's proven to be a thumper that's come in for Talanoa Hufanga in the 49ers secondary. But let's start on the opposite side of the ball and go with Dominick Puni. What are the numbers saying for Dominick Puni so far this year?
They're saying he's one of the best rookies in all of football. And it's amazing because he played a little bit of guard at Kansas. He was a left tackle last year, and he has stepped into the starting right guard spot and been incredible. Right now, he's the 9th best guard in football for us and the 8th best in run blocking. And he's getting better as the weeks go on. This game against Seattle, he had a 90.3 run blocking grade. I could feel it when I was watching the game on Thursday. I was just like, he is dominating. He's sealing people off. He's the zone blocking thing, the outside zone, the Kyle Shanahan blocking schemes. He's got it down to a T already. It's incredible. He gets up on the second level. This guy is already one of the best run blockers in football. And honestly, the biggest question I had for the 49ers, and it's been a thing for me, especially last year, the pass protection wasn't great outside of Trent Williams, is the rest of this offensive line is going to be the X factor. The other 4 guys, in them winning a Super Bowl or not, right? And a guy like Puni coming in at right guard and being as good as he's been, solid in pass protection, incredible. I'm talking about he is already one of the best run blockers in football, and he's picked up this system, and it's like he knows it like the back of his hand already. Because for as much window dressing is on it, it is pretty simple, right? There's very simple schemes in the Shanahan zone, like very simple rules in the scheme. So he's right now, a skill player will win Rookie of the Year, obviously a quarterback or a receiver or something like that. But Puni, if we were making a neutral list of like the grades and crossing positions and including offensive linemen, I think he'd be in the top 3 or 4 guys right now. He's been incredible.
It's been crazy how simple he's made it all look. And I was there at training camp and I saw him up close for the first time. I was like, wow, this guy's really big too. And he's nimble and he was getting out on the second level and blocking Fred Warner in practice. And we're seeing that translate now to NFL games. And he made a huge block, probably the biggest block to open up a hole for Isaac Guerrero on that long run that sealed it for the 49ers on Thursday night. So he's been absolutely phenomenal. So it's been fun to watch that rookie. And then you go to the other side and a couple of interceptions from the 49ers rookie class with second-round cornerback Renardo Green and fourth-round safety Malik Mustafa. So how's the rest of this rookie class looking for the Niners?
So Green's a guy who's interesting because he just had a big game against Seattle, and he's a guy I really liked at Florida State, especially one you can mix it up with and play a lot of man coverage. They played a ton of man coverage at Florida State. He can play him press. He's got good size, good length, and you saw really good speed catching up to that interception against Seattle. I believe he was covering DK Metcalf on that play. Obviously a tough cover, but Green's got a lot of talent. And you know, the one thing I kind of questioned going into when San Francisco drafted him, because San Francisco is usually pretty heavy zone, cover 3, cover 4 defense. I was like, man, does he fit there or not? But I'll tell you what, if you're going to give him a shot here and you're going to play a little bit more man-to-man coverage, Renardo Green's a guy you can do it with. I liked him a lot at Florida State, and I think as a guy who can match up with bigger receivers like that and impress, I think he really helps. He had a great game on Thursday. I'd expect him to continue playing well. He's been a lot of fun to watch.
I've gotten some questions about Nick Bosa this year and maybe not showing up as big in the sack department as some fans want. And I've tried to tell fans that Nick Bosa is still a phenomenal player, and there's maybe some very good reasons why, you know, the sack numbers might not be there, and to look at pressures and look at hurries and some other things. And, you know, he's got to play the run too. He can't just pin his ears back and go for the quarterback every snap. Can you help me with that argument for some fans that think, maybe Nick Bosa isn't that good after all?
It's simple. He's still one of the best edge players in football. He's an elite level player who's worth every dollar he makes, right? He's the 3rd highest graded edge player in football right now. Got an 88.3 pass rush grade, which is awesome. 35 pressures. Look, at sacks, yes, you want sacks, right? But and you'd love to lead the league in sacks. And for our numbers, he's got 3. We don't do the half sack thing, so I don't know what the actual number is, but he's got 3 for us. And he just, I mean, he's an elite player. I don't know that there's any argument to this. 35 pressures is second most in the league behind Aiden Hutchinson, who before his injury was having an incredible year. Bosa could lead the league in pressures. It's about disrupting the quarterback, right? You're not going to sack the guy every play, but it's about winning and the quality of wins too. How quickly are you getting there? Every quarterback is worse under pressure. I don't care who it is. If it's Purdy, if it's Mahomes, Allen, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, it doesn't matter. You get consistent pressure on a quarterback, his numbers are going to drop. And Bosa does that. So I don't think there's any merit to any argument that Bosa is not an elite player, because he is still, I would argue, between him and Warner, obviously they're your 2 best defensive players, and he's one of the 4 or 5 best edge defenders in the league.
Which brings me to Fred Warner and Dalton. Tell me first of all, who the defensive player of the year is in the NFL and why it's Fred Warner.
I actually do think it's Fred Warner. I think there's some good arguments. I think Xavier McKinney's got some good arguments. Actually, I will say this. Through 6 weeks and what he did through 6 weeks before his injury, I would probably put Warner second and Aiden Hutchinson first. He was having an amazing year, 45 pressures in 5 games. It's just ridiculous. It's actually, right this minute, it would be Aiden Hutchinson, but obviously his season's unfortunately over. Fred Warner's next on that list. I don't think there is a bigger gap between the best player at a position and the next best player than there is with Fred Warner at linebacker. He is so clearly the best linebacker in football for what he does in run defense. He's the engine of that, and he fills every gap that he needs to. He can run sideline to sideline. just amazing in coverage. I know he always has been, but it feels like he continues to turn it up every single year, right? We've seen just some freak interceptions from him. Already got 2 interceptions. He forces fumbles. He makes tackles. There's nothing Fred Warner can't do. And it's a season like this that's going to guarantee that he's in the Hall of Fame one day. With Hutchinson out now, I would say Warner is the favorite to be Defensive Player of the Year.
By the way, I like that you're repping the New York. For those listening on the audio pod, he's got a Mets jersey on. I'm absolutely a Mets fan this week. And there's I don't know if do you go Giants or Jets, because there's a Giants defensive lineman I think that it maybe would be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year right now too.
I actually lean Jets. I'm a Jets fan.
Okay. What do you think about the Saleh thing? We on this pod are fans of Robert Saleh. I feel like he got a little bit of a raw deal there. What's your take on that? What kind of a job did Robert Saleh do as a head coach?
I think the two things that worked against him as a head coach were the Jets. They usually performed kind of poorly in the first quarter. It's like they always took a quarter to get the engine running, and then they got it going and they played up to their talent level in quarters 2 through 4. There was too many times in his tenure where they just didn't play well enough in the first quarter to win. They didn't get off to good starts. The other thing too is the penalties. There was way too many penalties throughout his tenure. It was a consistent theme. It still continued this year, even with Aaron Rodgers. It just sometimes early in games, I think this was the biggest detriment. Early in games, there was a lack of focus in the first quarter, especially on offense. This year, they have the lowest graded offense in the first quarter of games. And in quarters 2 through 4, they were, I think it was 13th they're at. I mean, so they could do this. And Aaron Rodgers has been good outside of the Minnesota game, and he's, I would argue, been their best player. But the lack of focus early in games and the discipline with the penalties, I think, are the two things that really did him in.
By the way, looking at Dexter Lawrence, 8 sacks. The guy's like a nose tackle. He's been phenomenal. Fred Warner would get my vote, though. And I think TJ Watt and Nick Bosa and Myles Garrett and the usual suspects are in the mix there as well. But Fred Warner, let's get him some hardware this year. I think he's playing like Defensive Player of the Year. Hopefully that ankle injury allows him to continue to play that way. Big one coming up with the Kansas City Chiefs. Dalton, appreciate you jumping on the show with us and confirming some of the things we already thought about some of the guys that we cover here every day on Locked On 49ers. Brock Purdy is elite. Best quarterback in the league, according to Pro Football Focus. You hit it here, heard it here. Dalton, appreciate you, man. At PFF_Dalton. Anything else you want to throw out there for the listeners to check out before we go?
I'm always on the PFF grade release show on Mondays at 1:00, and that's up on YouTube now every week with Trevor Sikkema. And I'm also co-host of the PFF College Football Show. If college football is your thing, we review all the big games from the weekend prior on Sunday mornings and preview all the biggest games on Tuesday nights.
Awesome. Say hi to Trevor for me, another friend of the program, a friend of the network. And thanks for jumping on again, Dalton. Appreciate all the listeners out there. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. And Croc and I back tomorrow, Wiki Wednesday style, right here, Locked On 49ers.